Okay, so hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed the previous session with some amazing legend hackers that we had. So like till now we have attended sessions by developers from FANG and all. Then we attended sessions from hackers just mentioned. We attended sessions from product managers and multiple other roles that are there into the tech industry. But today we have a special person with us. He has been associate vice president at Paytm. So he has hold multiple responsibilities on his head. But the best part is his startup got acquired by Paytm. So it's like it's a point by which we can say that this is fraud success. And today, like, you have been watching all the sessions onto the Aviyel platform, right? And I hope you as per your feedback about the platform, the session has been so amazing, and that this platforms has been created by Jose and his team. Okay, so he's the founder of Aviyel. So I welcome Jose onto our conference to share about his views in developing open source communities and enlightening us, to a brighter future. Yep, over to you, Jose.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. I'm super glad that you guys are enjoying. So I was just doing the backstage. We were just chit chatting about the sort of brilliant speakers we had for the session, right? So I know this towards the end of the whole day. I mean, I'm sure actually you enjoyed it. But just to let you know, guys, like if you guys find anything which we can improve on Aviyel, especially with respect to the video platform, just click on, let us know on the chat, because it's still we are working with the community to actually make it better, right? Because it's fundamentally for the community to talk about what's going on, right? So that being said, one of the things actually I like to talk about, and this might not be the best thing to talk about towards the end, is around open source and the sustainability around that. See, I think Aviyel's mission is to bring sustainability to open source projects. And that's the heading of the session as well. But one of the things we have seen is that actually open source has been a very overlooked element. If you look at the entire software development, stack as well, right? It's been around for I think 20 to 30 years plus, right? But still, for us, one of the primary reason to jump into Aviyel was we know a couple of folks who are who's part of open source, who are we actually knew two maintainers. And we had this discussion, so Ben mentioned, once we got acquired by Paytm, we had really, I would say good amount of time to actually think about, what is a big enough opportunity, and something which we want to have impact on, right? I think and this might be a common pattern for your second time or third time founders. Once you actually once you build something, you exit, or you able to scale it, you feel like, okay, what, now I would actually build something, or I would look at a problem which have a much larger impact, right? And that has been the same logic for us. And so the initial discussion was we had a random conversation with this maintainer. He's sort of talking about the struggles he had as a maintainer. Before that, actually, I need to be very upfront. I'm sort of, someone actually knew that there was a problem. More from a peripheral view, right? But I now, talking about Heartbleed, around OpenSSL and stuff like that. But we never knew actually, what was the real deal until actually we started talking to a lot of the folks, right? What we realized that there is a lot common between the maintainers as well as the entrepreneurs. The funny part about that actually not funny, is actually sort of irony, is the fact that once the entrepreneur sort of succeeds, he either get funded or get exit, or he's scale the business, he have more people or more firepower to actually bring to the table and expand it. On the other hand, it's almost the other way for a maintainer. Once he gets success, he struggles a lot, and this has been a common pattern right from one of the core members of Python, all the way to, like, I think you guys might have heard about, log4j, right? So this has been a pattern. It's very simple. Like, most of the developers, who actually eventually became maintainer, they mostly start with the open source project, because it's actually, like, it's scratching their own itch, right? There's something they want to solve. They actually build it out, they ship it out, and then it just takes off, right? Once it takes off, they really don't know what to do, because the avalanche of requests that comes over is really impossible for them to manage, right? So we keep when we talk to these guys, like, we keep hearing this simple element, like, you get burned, and, like, you get chucked, and somebody gonna take it over, right? And what the irony here, like, everything you consume in open source is actually pretty much powered by everything. Any software we pretty much consume is powered by open source, right? So while I was talking to Vedant, we were just talking about this really interesting angle. So there's this GitHub. I think she was with GitHub. I think last job was with Substack. Nadia Iqbal. Nadia has written extensively about the problems of open source, the many aspects of struggles of maintain. Even she actually even like experimented with the multiple models. So one of the very interesting aspect what Nadia mentioned so she had like two major publications. Two major. One was a book. Second was actually sponsored research by Ford Foundation. So the gist is very simple. We should look at open source as a public utility, right? Because if the entire software stack you consume is actually built out of open source, and if there is no one supporting them, it pretty much like because the benefit of open is actually shared by the entire society. It's not the maintainer, right? It's not just on the community. It's the entire society that's actually takes advantage of it. But the way it's been funded, it's right now, it's actually very like skewed, right? It's been more, you see like donation or like multiple small, I will come to that, but we still haven't seen until open source, software element or software piece actually became very critical. Government, when it's a government, mostly like I'm talking about US government step in. We have seen that multiple times, but you still like have a wide range of libraries and application which doesn't have any support, right? So one of the elements what Nadia pointed out, we should look at open source as a public utility and and fund it like just like that, because it will take years and to actually see the benefit, but the entire society gonna take the benefit out of that. And I think that's a very logical way of seeing open source as a public utility which should be funded by the society itself. So coming back to the point we mentioned, right? So we for us, we definitely knew there was a huge skew. Opportunity in terms of helping the community and the maintainers. Secondly, what we also realize the fact that a lot of times the users, whether it's a developer or a business, they are actually paying support consulting for the projects they assume, right? They observe on your stack, open source projects, right? And that doesn't go back to the maintainer or the community, right? So that was a simple angle we had. Why don't we build a platform which link all these three parties, right? So what if you have seen Aviyel, we have 4 projects right now on platform, and right now it's more about helping them with their community engagement, activating the second tier of ambassadors who can actually come and help the maintainers on a much larger way. But I think in next 3 to 6 months, you're going to see we're going to start bringing more and more federated, structured elements which can help the community to provide support and consulting. what is really cool about that, we are building in a way like every penny that actually goes to the platform, a part of it actually goes back to the core members, so actually they can focus on building the software which are without getting burned, right? And the entire community gonna get benefit out of that. So that is actually how we are seeing the evolution. But it's still day zero for us in terms of what we are building, and in terms of helping the community. So that has been our, I think, short term journey. But if you guys got any questions, or like, I can definitely go deeper into that, or like okay. I hear someone said actually it's slightly bit slow, have trouble understanding what you're saying. Okay. Do you guys actually can hear me out? Vedan, can you hear me? Okay, cool. No, there was a comment saying, okay, cool. So yeah, so I think coming back to the sustainability, right? So I think the way we are looking at bringing. So right now we have 4 projects. So the focus has been bringing more and more contributors and activating more and more contributors. So you could see we have most of the projects we onboarded, and okay, I'll do that. We build champions because it's still an experimental model, right? So if you look at the ask from the way we look at these projects, we go to the maintainers and ask them, hey, how can we help you, right? So we had like multiple requests from people. In fact, actually, I think last week, not last week, it's still ongoing. We're helping one of the projects, Mobus, in terms of redesigning his UI. So it's done completely by community, right? So the maintenance said like, hey, we have like multiple of these pages, and can we get a help on that, right? So as simple as I don't think actually UI is actually simple, but as simple as getting a question answered, documentation. So we are helping projects with the entire knowledge that's being logged in the community. So if you can see, if you go to the projects page, you can see we have I think little more than 100 plus questions for the projects we onboarded. These are questions that's been answered by the community and answered by the maintainer. So we make sure when you're a user or a business actually adopt it, they'll find more and more relevant information when it comes to adopting the piece of stack or the software. We're also working with the community, and this is actually why we need more and more folks to join Aviyel and the projects. We are also looking at helping the projects in terms of documentation. It can be as simple as how to use, how to install this particular piece of software in this particular environment, or it can be like the entire comparison between this particular piece of software and with multiple other proprietary or closed source. So there are a lot of I would say like first time contribution elements that we are working towards with the project. If you are also a maintainer, or like somebody actually already have a project, you can also reach out to us. But I think I'm assuming this community is actually mostly towards people who actually want jump into open source. So if you are interested, join our Discord or join the project Discord. There are multiple shout outs happen in terms of first contribution. This can be like anything as simple as a documentation piece or a PR. And what is really cool about Aviyel, which you won't find in most of the platforms, we work really close with the maintainers, right? So the maintainers is actually part of the entire vision. So and maintainers, if you guys seen the sort of maintainers we have, this is million plus dollar super engineers sort of people, right? They build really amazing projects from scratch, right? So talking to them, understanding the way they think about things, it's priceless. So I think with our first contribution efforts going live, I think in the next 2 weeks, we are also going to have office hours with the projects. I'm sorry. So there was a question I've seen. Yeah. So I'm saying like the first contribution is something we're gonna like really drive in next 2 months. So if you guys have actually like gem band, like help the projects, it's definitely gonna be like a huge learning when it comes to entering open source, and we'll make sure it's very as seamless as possible, because you'll have a lot of mentors coming in. We are bringing a lot of mentors, um, um, and we are also bringing the maintainers, like spend time over here, right? So it's a great time to jump in. And I mean, people, you guys might ask this question, right? Why should we enter, or why should we need to start open source, right? Two things. One, if you want to if you want to if you want to actually start your career as a software engineer, I think open source working, having a PR is one of the huge validation. People sort of brag about that, right? And it's not it's sort of like talks about what kind of engineer you are. And secondly, we have seen this thing, and we have seen a lot of the open source contributors coming full time. And I think in next 3 to 5 years, we think a lot more people gonna come full time, and I think I will definitely gonna play a huge element on that. And that's why we are bringing more and more projects, and making sure they making sure the community gets paid for the work they do, right? And just to make sure you guys understand, we are not actually changing the open source. We are just making a strong layer of contributors around the open source, right? So that is what we are trying to do. So we make sure people, we want to make sure like developers work in things they like and get paid for that. That's what we think is the way is the way actually developers going to evolve. So that's what we are trying to do. So yeah, that's pretty much the crux what I thought I'll discuss about. If you guys actually got any questions, please shoot.
Just as this is the right time for you to ask questions, and you won't get any such good opportunities in the near future to listen to someone who is so much experienced.
Yeah, see, guys, I still gonna be in Discord, or we have the entire set of entire folks here. So if you still don't have a question, feel like you can always come back. But I think I would definitely wait for the first contribution happening in next 2 weeks. I think the first one is actually starting with I think we are starting with 3 projects right now. I think in February we'll have 3 projects going live with the first contribution. So if you guys actually want to get into open source, this is actually one of the best things to do. We also have a small I would say small nugget of information we would like to share at the towards end of it. We are also evolving in terms of our thought process, but before that, I definitely talk about answer your questions. If you got any questions in terms of how you guys can help open source, can you explain a bit more clearly about open source and what this is you're doing about? Really curious to know about it. You want to know about open source or what we are trying to do? Is that the one? Okay, I'll take a step back. So both. Okay, got it. Cool. So see, open source, like I said, if you're consuming any set of software, right, it's mostly built out of open source, right? From your Linux, any libraries, right? Even this entire stack is actually built off mostly open source components, right? GitHub is not open source, but Git, which is actually the piece which was actually was built on open source. So fundamentally, what is open source? So if you look at evolution open source, that's a long discussion. But the way I look at open source, there are 2 things. One, it's a shared community which have a common goal, and it can be as simple as, hey, there's this library which need to there's an API which need to be update multiple currencies price, right? As simple as that, or can be as complicated as OS, right? But the way it's been the way open source evolved is the fact that somebody has started, hey, I don't like this particular thing and I want to fix it, and he started writing the code and publish it in forums like GitHub. And the way it works, if you're a developer and you say, this thing actually I can improve it, and you go there, you actually take that particular bit, and you actually do a pull request. And if the maintainer or the maintaining core team likes what you did, they can merge it, right? So what is the beauty of that? You can see the entire code publicly available. And the second thing is around the joint ownership. So it's mostly it's started by one or two individual, but over the course of time, when you look at successful open source, it's been managed by a lot of folks, right? So you'll see more than 30 to 40 people actively working, and this mostly people are all around the world. They most likely might not even have met. It's just async conversation, and they all working together on this particular problem, right? And the code is publicly available. The other element around open source which make it really attractive is the licensing. So there are couple of different variants for licensing. On high level, it's a copy left, and so fundamentally, just to make it easier for you guys, two set of license. One which talks about you can take this license and take this piece of code and do whatever you want, and the second set of license does have some of the restrictions, like you can't sell this thing modifying it, and if you're gonna make any modification, you have to push it publicly, right? So there are these are two major set of license. So if you look at most of the well-known projects, it mostly comes from the MIT, which is actually one of the most popular one, which says you can do whatever you want. And the second set of license, like I said, GPL or AGPL, which have some kind of restriction when you actually using it, right? And in the last 3 to 4 years, you will see even more I would say newer license which have even more restrictions. So if you guys actually following open source, there has been a couple of structure cracks in terms of the way bigger organizations use open source. Things like cloud players, where actually they pick up the open source and actually make it proprietary, right? So because of that, a lot of the projects I think Elasticsearch is actually one example. They changed the license. So that I think, yeah. So what I'm saying is actually there are three elements. One, the code is publicly available. Second, you have a very, very relatively easy to use license. And third is actually owned by a lot of people who actually work asynchronously around the world to make it happen. So I think that for me, that is actually open source, and this is actually pretty much consumed by the entire society for their own benefit, right? But at that point, you can fork the project now. You've been talking about the crack I mentioned, in terms of licensing. Yeah. So see, I think So see, when you so what I don't want to actually go into that particular discussion, but what Amazon has did on high level, they took Elasticsearch, and then they made modification on top of that, and then actually publicly let it they didn't make the that particular contribution public, right? And they started selling it under a different brand name. So Amazon sort of made it whatever work that's been done by Elasticsearch, Amazon took it and they started having their own version of it, and they started selling to their own customers, which means it's impossible for someone like Elasticsearch to compete with selling Elasticsearch to their customers, because Amazon have a much larger as simple as they have much larger arsenal, right? It's a much larger organization, so that make really hard for companies which actually if you're a company which actually develop something and you want to create if you're a project which actually develop something, if you want to create an IP around that and create a company, someone like Amazon, if you're going to compete against someone like Amazon, it's going to be really hard. So that was a crack, and they changed the license in a way that actually Amazon cannot actually sell it without actually making it public. Did I answer the question? Edward says it's Elasticsearch and compatible with now, I think. Yeah. See, I think so. This has been a Amazon has been one example. There are multiple examples. If you look at, I think Sentry also has changed the license. I think in the last 2-3 years. So the way I look at it, as open source evolve, and you see like different ways people try to monetize it, right? Definitely, and this is actually something I missed to talk about. There's if you're open source project, there are 3 to 4 options you have, right? One is actually around donation. I think which is actually your default starting point if you got a really successful project. You can definitely look at support and consulting, but mostly what happens if you're a maintainer, your focus should not be support and consulting. You should be like focusing on the core of the project you build, right? Third thing is you see like Elas. Elas is an example, like where they have open core, where actually they have a community version and enterprise version. The fourth version is more like SaaS, where actually you have hosted version, and the other one is completely available for free, right? So these are like the 3 to 4 ways you can monetize open source. The element I like to talk about is the fact that every product actually, when they grow and when they reach different stages, they'll have problems which they're not really like built for, right? So the classic example is actually Elasticsearch, right? When Elasticsearch was really a small project, I don't think that actually they really worried about the licensing. Once they start growing, and once they have like 2 licensing, and once they actually have employees on their payroll, they have to start, okay, what if someone like AWS come after, right? It won't be really easy for us to survive. So I think as we see open source being evolved, more and more monetization piece is going to come out. I think definitely I see more and more industrial licensing bit also going to come out. And I think this is gonna, and this depends on which stage are you, right? If you're actually chasing a $1 billion industry, then definitely licensing might be a critical element for you. Which is the best license for you to use for my see? That is actually really hard. It's a very it's a very loaded question. Like, I don't know what is a project you're working on, but yeah, I always tell people to start with MIT. It's the most what do you call easiest to one. As you don't need to actually worry about stuff. People won't get pissed off. But and the good thing about MIT is the fact that actually you can always change it later on if you want to. So that gives the flexibility as well, right? So I think that's why I said actually MIT. But then again, I don't think I'm actually giving advice saying, hey, you should start with MIT. I think it's a call you have to make, being a median, right? Because fundamentally it's your baby, right? So I would definitely, ask you to take a look at, that there has been like a lot of documentation around like what does each project does and why should you, pick it up. And, if you're going to build a SaaS based solution, I think GPL and AGPL especially it's talk about like some kind of restriction. So I would definitely you can actually ping me on Discord. We can actually have discussion. Jacob, who is actually our other co-founder, spent a lot of time looking at licensing, so definitely can help you on that bit. But MIT is actually very easy point to start with, because definitely down the line if you want to convert, you can convert. But then again, bear in mind, changing your licensing will have a huge impact on your community. It's almost like like you're going, you're driving a bus, and one fine day you're just taking a U-turn without actually letting your community know, right? So I would definitely talk to your community, because you're open source. Even if you are the maintainer, like it's you might have done like 90% of it, but that doesn't mean you own it, right? So I would definitely say have a really good discussion with the community. Tell them, hey, these are the concerns and this is why we need, right? Because alienating your community is one of the worst things you can do at any point when you're running an open source project, right? So I would definitely spend time talking to them before actually even thinking about it. But like I said, actually you can ping me on Discord, and we can have the discussion out there.
Okay. Well, I as well had a question. So it's like, like around a year ago, I was working on to an open source project, and it was really amazing project. Like it was a deep learning grapper tool, and there were some people who were contributing to it, got
Yeah.
500 stars and all. But eventually, it became very difficult, to rise from 500 to 5,000. That struggle. So, how can someone beat that struggle, and what would be the most efficient way in order to?
Yeah, see, I think the thing is, like, I mean, I can share his stories, based on my interaction with maintainers. um I have, I have, like, had words with, discussion with the people actually where they struggle like 3 to 4 years till they actually able to, like, break out. Like, even like as simple as, like, like getting the value prop for the community, right? uh so, but the best thing what I heard about from the folks, Hacker News is actually one of the best place to actually get that thing word out, right? So even your messaging, right? Like that. I mean, you. I mean, what is the thing that actually relate to your what is the thing that actually relate to Hacker News, right? Because Hacker News is predominantly developers, right? So said, I mean, like, one of the maintainers, he mentioned he actually had like 3 to 4 versions, like before actually had the one successful one which actually went viral, and that took off, right? So I think I seen maintainers actually, like, just, like either luck or like they had a really amazing product market fit on the first post they have on Hacker News just takes off. And I've seen people actually, like, struggle, like, first 3 to 4, and then actually, like, eventually able to get that, that particular thing, right? So I would say, like, it's more about, like, speaking to a community and making sure what is the one that resonates them, right? So without that element, without actually getting, some kind of virality, it can be Hacker News, or like, I still, I also see like Dev2 is actually one place, but I think still relatively young folks hang out there. But getting one or two post viral on Hacker News is actually one of the things keep hearing from maintainers when they break out from the finders to, like, 1,000. And then see, once you actually have that, like one or two, like, article that goes viral, then you have product market fit. That's a compromise here, right? I mean, people see value and they're discussing, right? So until that point, like, you had, like, keep iterating your message, talk to community, what is the thing you want, right? So that I think that's the easiest way. That has been my learning so far when it comes to, project breakout from that 100 200 to actually all the way to 1,000 plus, and just, take off.
Okay, that very well answers. Okay, guys, feel free to ask your questions till that moment. Till that time, I'll ask mine. So, today, like when we say about open source culture in India, everyone is like, GSOC, and GSOC. But open source is
Yeah.
way beyond GSOC, right? What are your
See, I
views on?
think there are multiple folks, like, GSOC is actually one, like, you find a partial Linux Foundation, like, trying to like feed more and more developers into, like, signing up for open source, right? So like I said, open source actually have evolved in last 20-30 years. But I think last 5-10 years you see like a, like a crazy amount of, like explosion in terms of repos and users, right? Matter of fact, like, one of the things we did before writing any piece of code for Aviyel was to build a data slicer for GitHub to track the projects which we can onboard. And we have seen in a year, open source has expanded almost 30%, which means the entire, it's a signal, but I can say, like, the entire open source world has expanded almost 20 to 30% in a year, which means any piece of code that's been, like out there in GitHub has, I would say like 1 out of 3 lines of code, or like PRs. I think we track PRs. Happened in last 1 year, which is actually a crazy pointer in terms of how developers see open source, right? We have seen, I think we have seen a lot of the developers which we track, especially in the last 2 years, their contribution has actually almost, like, quadrupled in terms of, like spending time and, like, in the contribution that they have. So I think we definitely going to see a lot more people coming out and working on full time, but I think the problem here right now is the fact that other than funding, right, VC funding, there is no, and the bootstrapping way, right? There is no other way actually people can, like, work full time. So I think hopefully once we actually start iterating on our monetization, like I mentioned, support and consulting powered by community, we'll see more and more people coming, start investing their time full time on helping projects to scale.
Yeah, yeah. There's a question in the QA section. For example, before the company was founded, I assume that he meant Aviyel. What was the initial research process like?
So what we did, actually, we spent around, I think, 6 months talking to three set of people. We started with the users. We want to see what is suboptimal in when you consume an open. So actually, we want to see, how do a project or a developer, company or a developer picks an open source project, right? What are the things they look at, right? And once they made the selection, right, what do they need, right? What do they need in terms of support? Do you need consulting, right? And what are the means they go after right now, right? So what we realized that, and we spent, I think should have had a word with more than 150 plus folks, and these are mostly CTOs or directors of startups, mostly tech startups. Was the fact that actually people definitely look for, and this is a word I borrow from my other co-founder Jacob, is confidence, right? So people look at confidence in the code, confidence in the community, confidence in the documentation, right? So, and for them, community is actually the North Star, right? If there is a active community out there, that means they're least worried, because somebody gonna pick up, even if the core team or main are gonna leave, right? So they definitely look at that bit. And what we also realized, if you're mostly this mostly happens in the Series A, where you have fund or you're growing exponentially, you always look for support either actually by the project or by any of the cloud providers or a third party, right? And we have seen that a lot of the companies actually have retainers paid to third party companies to provide support on this particular thing, which is actually which in a way we thought actually was crazy, because the product actually they're supposed to, they're consuming, they're struggling, and you're paying a third party to actually support it, right? So that was actually the I would say, there is a demand, and the demand sort of, because nobody actually aggregating the demand and there is nobody benchmarking it, it's actually going to a third party which have almost zero interest in the project, right? So what we did, then we spent a good amount of time talking to maintainers, understanding what are the problems they have, right? So definitely we figured out building community is something they actually, I'll take a step back. One of the two things we identified when we spoke to people at different stages, right? One of the things we identified, and this has been a recurring pattern, is with maintainers who actually have a successful project. They do two things on day zero. One, they make sure they have a second tier around the project, making sure not just the maintainers, there are people, something with 4 to 5 people who can actually work as work in the community, answering questions, work activating more and more folks, right? So they make sure that layer is there from day zero. And secondly, at least one of the maintainer, he or she spent considerable amount of time evangelism, right? They go out, in forums, or go out in events, conference, stuff like that, right? So these are two elements which we have seen as the patterns which actually make the project really successful. And what we realize with the others, other projects other maintainers we had word with, they're great engineers, right? But they might not be really great in terms of building a community or going out and talking, right? So our learning has been hey, why don't we actually help build products and build playbooks to help these guys to actually activate the community, right? And that has been our last, if you look at last 3 to 6 months with the projects we onboarded, we launched community calls, which has been which never happened for most of the projects. We have contributor discussion, first contributor discussion. We when actually one of the pieces that going to come out is actually a joint job board, where actually community can say, I need help on this thing and we need help on that, and somebody can pick up from the community, right? So we sort of aggregating the demand and supply. So actually over the course of time, we'll also bring more and more tightly federated structured things where people actually can like, hey, you know what, I want support on this thing, I want to read X amount of money, somebody gonna come in, you can jump and start doing that. So that's the way we think this is going to evolve.
So there's a question: what do you mean by sustainability in the context of open source?
So two things. One, the community should actually grow at a decent amount of pace, as in, like, there should be more and more people coming in. And secondly, people should actually feel like they don't have time to actually do things they like, right? I think it should be bad. I mean, fundamentally the community should be happy to work on the things they like. And secondly, they should actually attract more and more people to like join the project, right? That is the way those are two signals we see as signals in terms of sustainability, right? So which means, like, people can join, they can talk about things, they can I mean, if their idea have weight, people gonna pick up, right? It's a very open thing. And second, they feel like the stuff they're doing, the work that the contribution they're doing is valued, and that actually is being absorbed to it actually goes to the core, and they feel like, okay, you know what, I'm actually adding value, right? And that is, for us, that is sustainability. Definitely, I also want to add, and this is actually more like a Aviyel's thesis. We also think financial sustainability also should be brought in, because right now what we are seeing, a lot of times actually the maintainers, even though he or she want to come full time, because of the financial restriction, they can't do that. So we think when you combine all these three things, open source, gonna explode, is what we envision. Cool. Since we are like sort of coming towards the end of the session, I mentioned, like, in the initial part of the call, about one really cool stuff we're working on. So one of the things actually we realized, and this has been a huge learning for us, is the fact that, and I think in a way it's slightly controversial as well for traditional open source. We have seen a lot of maintainers start. Maintainers actually want to, like, launch tokens in Web3 to distribute to community, right? And which we think is actually a really cool way of bringing more and more people from incentivizing more and more community members, right? And so Aviyel, we are definitely gonna, like, I think next if you guys gonna, like, stay back in next, gonna, like, check us back in next week or so. We're gonna, like, we're gonna start moving into the direction. We're gonna launch our first light paper around that, how we gonna help open source projects to actually, bring their community from Web2 to Web3, right? Where they can launch coins, they can distribute the coins, and if they want to, like, use this as a way to raise funding, they can do that. So which we think is actually one of the NFTs and most cryptos stuff feels a bit wrong to me. That's a very, see, I think, okay, let's take about NFT and crypto, right? At the heart of it, what we are doing, what's the benefit of going through crypto, right? Crypto is actually not controlled by anyone, right? It is actually, if you look at Ethereum, it's a distributed thing, right? And once you write the contracts, most of the times actually it's impossible to update the contract as well, right? Which means it is actually a decentralized way of giving back to a community, right? Which is actually one of the best. Which is okay. I'll take a step back. Fundamentally, we think open source projects work more like a DAO. If you guys haven't heard of DAO, it's actually distributed autonomous organization, right? It's open source is actually collectively owned, right? It's not one single person, right? So we think open source already is working as a DAO for last 20-30 years, but even though there was, like, even they're working like that, there was no software layer on top of that. And with the crypto and mostly with the Web3 and the DAO, we are sort of actually bringing that in a more like software driven way, right? So fundamentally the smart contracts actually, the stuff that's been going ever, but it's been done manually, and we are sort of bringing that software smart contract on top of them to manage it. So yeah, it's still day zero. I definitely love to hear out your thoughts on that once we publish our light paper. Yeah, so I think I understand, like Devonshire said, actually, like, NFT feels like a scam. So see, I think this actually has been a discussion that actually happened inside our own like community. When I say community, like in our own Intel, discussion. See, if you are actually, I mean, if you had invested in NFT, right? Most likely you are someone who actually made money in crypto. So I mean, the entire mindset of someone who actually bought, like Bitcoin for $10 and like, went all the way to 40,000 is completely different from someone like someone who actually now are, like someone actually bought crypto in like last 2-3 years. Because see, for you, for let's say actually I bought crypto. I mean, I bought Bitcoin when it was $10, right? Uh, I mean, after a certain point, you see like, okay, Bitcoin has grown like, crazily, right? Now how do I actually distribute my risk, right? So that's where actually you're gonna pick up other coins. Secondly, I also need to actually signal, I am a crypto first guy, right? So NFT is actually one of the ways it's been done right now. I don't think it's actually, I mean, the price that's been paid for NFT, I'm not right the person to talk about it, but you can say there's a bubble. But what I'm trying to say, like, I mean, when someone actually coming from it's as simple as like, buying a Lamborghini or or Ferrari, right? Of course it's outlandish, but like, I mean, if you look at the the symbol, I mean, like, if you want to move from point A point B, like, I mean, you can actually pick a Honda or a Ferrari, right? Matter of fact, but I mean, the signal is actually different, right? I mean, I'm driving a Ferrari versus a Honda. That same thing with that, like, I mean, NFT, right? So these are like signals that's been, I mean, I'm showing off that actually I'm a crypto first person, right? And that is element here. And like I said, actually, if you have like, let's say 10 or like 100 crypto, 100 Bitcoin, and you bought it when it was $100 and now it's 40K, that means like, I mean, you have that amount of liquidity to show off. So, I mean, it comes with a completely different mindset. It's really hard until actually you are in that particular mindset. So I don't think there's anything wrong and right on that, but I mean, the value of NFTs might be crazy. I agree on that, but that's just an opinion, right? That's the way I look at it. But then again, the last bit, I this might be very controversial. I would definitely look at NFT more like cave art, right? The first time somebody like scribbled a piece of like piece of stuff on the rock and hand over, I mean, that was art. But if you like, I mean, look back right now, like you see like there's a cave art, right? That's the way you should look at NFT. Like it's day zero for NFT. So give it a break, let them actually do whatever they want. But as it grows, you'll see like, I mean, there'll be more and more interesting use cases that are going to come up for NFT, and that's where it'll have much wider adoption. Cool. Yeah, so I think I definitely would actually hear out your thoughts once we publish the white paper. I mean, I think in next 2 to 3 days we'll make it public. It's still, we've been reviewing that internally and with a couple of folks we knew from the industry. So definitely love your thoughts on that. But and I think, like I mentioned before, if you are a developer, if you want to like jump into open source, we are helping a lot of developers to do that. So like sign up for our first contribution, join our Discord. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to share here.
Amazing. Yep. So definitely, like people here, they got their idea cleared about open source and what it is. Totally, what are the different licenses that we have? What are the projects? And we as well went to Web3 and crypto, one of the most trending and interesting topics today. It was
And controversial as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely it stays on to person's own opinion, where he wants to invest his assets, as Joshua mentioned, and it's high risk, high gain kind of thing. So yeah, it was nice having you, Josh, here. If you okay, there's one question by Praneeth. Do you have any open source projects in mind to add to the platform in near future?
No, I think we have like I think we have like at least like 4 to 5 projects lined up. We'll start announcing them by end of this month and in next. So I think our target is actually to onboard at least 4 or 5 projects by end of March, and hopefully around 100 plus projects by end of this year. So that's our target.
So guys, if you have any more questions, you can jump into their Discord server. The link has been shared in the chat section, and yes, the whole team is available and can guide you a lot onto the same. There's one more into the QSHG. It says your views on the stuff that happened with Log4j recently, the way all beat giants were forcing to fix the bug ASAP.
See, I think the Log4j is actually a recent, recent, like I would say like a blip in terms of what's happening. I think it's been going around. I think in last 5-10 years has been like I think more than Log4j. I think there was Heartbleed, OpenSSL. So I think that's what I mentioned by the cracks, right? So I think single person or like 2 or 3 people working on a project which became a critical piece, you can't treat them like just like any piece of software, right? It's a critical piece in the data infrastructure, right? So I think so people expect, and this has been like like I said, actually Log4j is actually just just recent people expect maintainers to actually work like day in and day out to actually fix it. It's almost like they're for it's almost like they're supposed to do it, right? I mean the what we need to understand, Opens is actually more like a the maintainers actually doing it on their spare time. That has been most of the times, right? So it's more like they're giving it free for society, right? Based on their time. It's not like anybody actually forcing them to actually do that. So I think and that's where someone like us, I think there are like a couple of interesting companies coming out. So there is Gitcoin, which is also helping quadratic funding, which we think is actually very important. Investing in projects, investing in bounties of projects which have which will take years to actually sort of come out and be a force, right? So I think Gitcoin does a lot of they're doing a lot around the donation bit. We definitely gonna once we have our stack ready, I think we definitely gonna like partner with Gitcoin for donation. So there are 3 to 4 organizations that's been actively working in the space in terms of helping open source projects like raise funding, help them with the get more and more folks, right? So I think my views are very simple. Like it definitely has been a problem that's been going around for some time, and you find every now and then like something like 4j is actually on your face sort of thing, right? The only way you can actually solve it is by bringing more and more folks and extending more and more helping hands to the maintainers. That's the only solution for that.
I guess now we can wind it up, right? It's yep. Sure.
Cool. Hey, once again, thanks Vedan, thanks for the entire team. It's been a pleasure hosting you guys on Aviyel and letting us have this session, talk to community.
Yeah, it was all our pleasure, to listen to an amazing personality like you, who has such a great experience, not only into entrepreneur but into corporate side, having senior positions, and it was nice. It was really nice having you and hearing to you, and thanks a lot for your time. Yeah,
same here. Fantastic. So in like I said, actually jump to a Discord server if you guys watch. I'm always active there, so just ping me. I'm more than happy to actually answer any questions. And we have the entire our DevRel as well as community folks are there. So if you get stuck with any projects, we can definitely help you out on that bit.
Okay, thanks amazing people for listening patiently. I'm sure you got to learn a lot, and see you tomorrow, to day 4 of the conference, and thanks again for joining.
All right. Thanks,
Bye
guys. Bye bye. Take care.